Hello, class. It's Ms. Roberts here, and today we're going to talk about managing conflict. This is the last chapter we'll review in this course. I want to start off by saying thank you so much for being in this class. I enjoyed teaching you this semester, and I hope you learned a lot about yourself, your relationships, and how to manage our relationships in our family, friends, and romantic partnerships. Let's begin. So first, let's go ahead and talk about what conflict is. Okay, so what is conflict? Now we're going to use the book's definition of conflict, and it broke it down into several parts. Conflict is not just fighting or not physical violence or arguing. Conflict can be resolved through peaceful means. But let's break down what conflict is first. First is expressed struggle. Now sometimes you might get mad at someone but you don't tell them, or you resolve it on your own. But in order, at least for the book's definition, for conflict to occur, both parties or all parties involved have to know what's going on. Next, we have perceived incompatible goals. So, for example, for example, there might be a situation where you want something and the other person wants something, but they conflict with each other. For example, there might be a couple. One person might want to go out, one person wants to stay in. Those two goals completely conflict with each other, and it might cause conflict. Then we have perceived scarce rewards. So with a conflict, there might be a lack of money, a lack of time, a lack of resources, a lack of food, a lack of space. Whatever is scarce and people are competing for it, it can cause conflict. Next, interdependence. So in that moment, whether we know them or not, a conflict can occur if someone's interdependent on each other in that moment. If you think of road rage or just feeling frustrated in the road, you don't know the other motorists on the road, but if they cut you off or if there's a traffic jam or they do something wrong, in that moment, you're interdependent upon each other for safety and for a smooth driving experience. And if they don't do those things, you may get upset. Next is inevitability. No matter what we do, no matter how easygoing we are, we will encounter conflicts from time to time. In this chapter, we're going to learn about what conflict does, different types of conflicts, and your conflict management styles. So speaking of which, let me move myself over here. There are several different conflict management styles that we lead on. Now, each conflict management style, each person may have a different preference with each conflict management style, or we might use a combination or one of each, depending on the situation. So when we think about which conflict management styles are there, how they named or defined each conflict management style, you have to think of the two factors that we're measuring here. The importance of achieving the goal and the importance of relationship. Or you can think of the importance of fulfilling one's own goal and the importance of the other person. So self versus the other person. Now, with that in mind, let's take a look at the different types. First, you have avoiding. That's when both parties do not talk about the conflict at all. They suppress the conflict. They don't mention it. Even though there is conflict there, it doesn't necessarily get brought up until someone else brings it up. Notice that it's on the low importance of achieving one's personal goals and low importance of the other person's goals or the importance of relationship. So in the avoiding section, neither party is getting what they want. Next, we have the accommodating section. Notice how it's high on the importance of relationship or the importance of the other person and low on achieving one's goals. With accommodating, you yield to the other party. You let them win. So, for example, if you're eating chicken wings and it's the big game and you got to figure out who gets the last piece of chicken, if your partner wants a piece of chicken, you're accommodating them. All right. So you have accommodating when you yield to the other party, you give the other party what they want. Next, we have competing. So notice that it's on the lower end or the lower spectrum of the importance of the relationship or the other person, and it's high on the importance of achieving one's goal. It's actually the highest. That's when you compete and advocate for yourself and your goals, not necessarily at the expense of the other person, but it just takes priority. So whatever you want, whatever you're advocating for, takes priority. Next, we have compromise. Now, when we are resolving a conflict, we usually say, hey, we reached a compromise. In this model, it's defined a little bit differently. So, a compromise, that's when both parties win and give up something. So, it's like a win-win, lose-lose type of situation. So, it's when you think about compromise in this model, say, for instance, both parties want to go out to eat. One person wants pizza and the other person wants sushi. But one party doesn't like the other cuisine. So they compromise and they decide to go to, excuse me, they decide to go to a American hamburger place, right? So even though they liked the American hamburger place, they went to In-N-Out, they both gave up their preferences just to go to that one place and agree to that one place. So with compromise, both parties win and give up something. However, when we collaborate on the collaborating spectrum, notice that it's high on the importance of achieving the goal and high on the importance of maintaining the relationship. Both parties win. So, for instance, there's both parties want to go plan a vacation. One person wants to go to Hawaii and the other person wants to go to Florida. But they're like, I want to go travel somewhere that may not be in America, right? So maybe they'll say, okay, we want to go somewhere tropical. Let's go to Jamaica. So in the the collaboration, both parties work on the conflict and both parties end up satisfied. Unlike compromise, where, yeah, they are partially satisfied, but they are not completely satisfied because they just went with another option instead of wholeheartedly agreeing on the option that they chose. So let me move myself over. So here's some other things to think about when we avoid the conflict or if both parties don't mention the conflict. In this case, the conflict is ignored, and oftentimes people are pessimistic about conflict. So remember I said before that if we're talking about personality types, some people lean on certain conflict management styles more than others. So if you are pessimistic about conflict, then you might lean on avoidance a lot more than someone else who's not afraid of getting into a conflict or having hard discussions. Sometimes it's just easier to put up a status quo, especially when there is a difference in power dynamic. But if both parties continue to use the avoidance technique, then it can lead to unsatisfying relationships because it's not that we're avoiding to keep the peace per se that can only last for so long. They want to have to talk about it, and we have to come up with a solution. Sometimes speaking up is too great, especially when there's a power dynamic. This is interpersonal communication. So sometimes you might have to stand up with a person in your interpersonal circle with power, like a parent or a spouse who makes more money or a friend who is rich or famous. Sometimes speaking up is way too great. Or the opposite can happen. The relationship isn't worth it. The relationship is damaged and they don't have the energy to fight for the relationship anymore. Or the issue is fleeting and temporary and they just kind of ignore it to keep the peace. And move myself here. Next up, we have accommodation, lose win. That's when we allow others to have their way instead of inserting our own point of view. Sometimes the role of culture can play a part. If you think about what's valued in Western culture, namely American culture, versus what is valued in more higher context cultures, there might be a difference. Because if you think about in American culture, what do we call someone who avoids the argument? We call them a coward. We call them a chicken. We call them a loser, right? But in a more high context culture, in a more collectivistic culture, they might call them noble, a team player, someone who doesn't rock the boat, and that's a good thing. So sometimes a combination might be a go-to based on personality, or a combination might be a go-to based on cultural values. And sometimes it's helpful. You might accommodate because someone accommodated you, or you want to be nice, or you want to have a relationship where you give sometimes and then you take sometimes as well. But next we have competition. So in the old in the great USA, this is something that we value the most. Now that's changing, thinking about on social media where we're trying to slow down and we're trying to become more aware of others. We're trying to not be in the rat race. That competitive spirit that is valued in our culture, the individualistic spirit that's valued in our culture also spills over or influences our conflict styles. So conversely, like a combination, people are viewed as noble who avoid conflict in Western culture if they face conflict head on. And of course, with competition, we are advocating for our own goals. We are called assertive. We are called brave. We are called winners. However, with competition, there's nothing wrong with competition, especially if you're advocating for what you want and fighting fair. But you don't want to compete all the time. Relationships are about give and take and just pick your battles a little bit. But if you are advocating for what you want, make sure to outline and specify why you feel this way and then work from there. Next, we have a not so great a not so great habit that we may demonstrate when in conflict. One is called passive aggression. You might have heard this term before. And with passive aggression, it's not necessarily direct aggression where you might not know that someone's mad at you, but the hints are subtle. And with these subtle hints, they're crazy making tactics to punish the other person without a direct confrontation. So those who are more avoidant in conflict management styles might use passive aggression to indicate something's wrong, and then you kind of have to get it out of them like, okay, what's wrong? They may also use techniques such as guilt, nonverbal communication such as eye rolls and sighs, a very pained look on their face, or they might use humor and sarcasm that Sounds like a joke, but might not be a joke. So if there is someone in your life that is more passive aggressive, just try to give them a safe space to say, hey, what's wrong? What's going on? Or if you are passive aggressive, try to not be. Just try to be more direct. Make sure you have a safe space to do so, just so the other person knows what's going on. Next, you have direct aggression. Now, direct aggression is not subtle. It's literally someone who is angry doing these things. Now, some of these things we might do, but some of these things that we definitely shouldn't do because they're illegal. So here's some of the direct aggression techniques that people use, and we definitely want to avoid them as much as possible. Sometimes there are character attacks where someone attacks who they are, or competence attacks where someone attacks their intelligence or their talents. Then physical appearance attacks when someone's attacking someone else's looks. Maledictions are bad wishes to someone. Like, I hope you bust a tire, or I hope you don't win the contest. They say that out of anger. Teasing and ridicule that's not shared. It's not like, oh, we're laughing together, but you're laughing at me. Threats. Now, of course, threats is very serious. Or searing remarks. These are used to deliberately hurt the other person emotionally. And all these together can even lead to emotional abuse, so that's not good. Nonverbal emblems, shaking like, I can't believe you did that. Or other emblems that I won't show here. Direct aggression, like I said before, is not good. We want to make sure that we talk to each other in a healthy way. And of course, this, whether we use direct aggression or not, is based on how we grew up, what's acceptable in our environment. But we want to make sure as adults that we talk to each other with kindness. Even if we disagree, if you are angry, take a step back. Or if someone's displaying these types of direct aggressions, you take a step back and, of course, be in a safe space. Next, we have compromise. Negotiate lose-lose, or if you're an optimist, negotiate win-win. Now, with compromise, both parties get some of what they want, but they sacrifice their goals. So just like I said before, with the example of the couple going out to eat, one wanted pizza, one wanted sushi. They're really craving those foods, but the other person doesn't like sushi and the other person doesn't like pizza. So what do? We just get In-N-Out because everybody loves In-N-Out. Well, maybe almost everybody. Although In-N-Out is an okay choice, they were really hoping for pizza or sushi. So in this case, it's negotiated lose-lose. Now, the book talks about it doesn't deserve its positive image just because you want to get all what you want sometimes, right? So that's why we go to competitive conflict management style. But sometimes if someone compromises their values, so in a more serious context, someone wants you to do something or be something or act some way or lie, it might be too much to do, too much of a compromise that's not worth it. But sometimes a compromise is the only thing you can do, and it's kind of hard to be in the collaborating space. It might not be possible. So compromise, negotiate, you lose, negotiate, win-win. You have to give something up to get something. Then we have a collaborated win-win. So win-win is the conflict where all parties are satisfied and there's a high concern for self and a high concern for others. It's a little bit rare because sometimes you just can't get what you want all the time, but we wish. Sometimes it's not possible or appropriate, but this is the goal that we're working towards in conflict resolution. Next, we're going to talk about conflict management styles. Because conflict management involves at least two people, some people might not view or encounter conflict the same way. So when we have complementary conflict, partners use different but mutually reinforcing behaviors. So for example, you might have people who are both avoidant or both competing. Excuse me. With symmetrical conflict styles, people use the same tactics. And then we have complementary fight flight style. So, for example, you might have one person who is competing, and you have one person who is, excuse me, one person who is avoidant. So, because one person is being confrontational, and the other person is running away, that is not going to be a happy time because conflicts aren't being resolved. Just to go back with complementary conflict styles, the partners use different but mutually exclusive reinforcing behaviors. So, for example, in one case, one partner might be accommodating and the other partner might be competing. Yes, those might clash if not used correctly, but the competing partner can teach the person who's accommodating to advocate for oneself, and the person who is accommodating can teach the person who is competing to be more open to sharing and be more open to being less selfish in a way. And with symmetrical conflict styles, that's when they use the same tactics. So I apologize for that. Next up, we have the toxic conflict, the four horsemen. Now, we want to make sure to fight fair and to advocate for ourselves fairly. But here's some ways that people just don't fight fair when they're in a conflict. Sometimes there's criticism and we can attack the character and not the problem. Defensiveness, we deny responsibility and counterattacks instead of using our I statements and taking responsibility for what we do. Contempt, demean and belittle the other person, put them down and not attack the problem but attacking the person. And stonewalling. Stonewalling is a little bit different than just cooling off if you're upset. Stonewalling is the silent treatment. Shutting down, withdrawing, and not having the willingness to talk it out, even if the person's willing to respectfully. So we want to avoid these in order to have a healthy conflict management style. Next, we have conflict rituals, unacknowledged but real repeating patterns of interlocking behavior. For example, have you ever been in the store and there was a kid, they're talking to their parent, they want the candy bar, and the parent says no, and the child just gets on the floor and starts screaming and tantruming and all those types of things? Do you think that's the first time that's happened? Probably not. So, with these conflict rituals, that child learned that if they don't get the chocolate bar, the parent will give them the chocolate bar if they start kicking and screaming and falling to the floor. And usually the parent gets embarrassed and they buy the chocolate. So now they're in a conflict ritual. So unless the parent breaks that conflict ritual, the child will keep doing that. So, like that example, sometimes we have conflict rituals where we excuse me, that we use similar conflict management styles in multiple scenarios. Sometimes it's appropriate and sometimes it's not. So, for example, we might be avoiders of conflict, or we might be super confrontational and competing. We might be super accommodating and not advocate for what we want. But think about your own conflict rituals. Think about, are they working for you or are they not? And if they're not, how can you use the techniques that we talked about, the conflict management styles, and how can you tweak your conflict management style in order to be a better communicator? So how can we manage conflict? Well, first, we need to define our needs. Sometimes in the moment, we might not know what we need. So take a step back and write them down and ask the other party what they need from them, what you need from them, and ask them what they need you to do. You want to make sure to choose a suitable time and place. So, for example, for those who watch reality TV, being in the middle of a crowded restaurant is not a place to hash out your differences. And of course, using I language, not only do you state responsibility for your feelings, but you describe the behavior that's bothering you. But you also have to listen to the other person's needs and perspectives. So make sure not to be selfish in that conflict resolution process. Listen to the other person's needs, and you can start sharing that dialogue. As you share that dialogue, you generate possible solutions, write them down, get a whiteboard, or just talk about how can you solve the problem. Evaluate those possible solutions and choose the best one. What works, what doesn't work, and then implement the solution. Follow up and see, hey, what's the problem solved? Does this work for you? Let's talk. But you want to keep the communication going. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight. We talked about what conflict is. We talked about the different conflict management styles. And we also talked about how do we manage conflict and the steps of managing conflict. I hope you learned a couple of things, a couple of tips and tricks, and identified your own conflict management style. Again, thank you so much for being in my class. This is usually the last chapter I talk about before the semester ends. And let me know if you have any questions. All right. Good night, everyone.